Alright folks, welcome back. In this video we're going to discuss another set of operations with fractions, and that is addition and subtraction with fractions. Now we lump these together because they follow the same rules. The only difference is at the end, and that's a decision whether we add or subtract. So that part's not too bad. There's some finicky parts of addition and subtraction with fractions which we do need to talk about. Now, what I need you guys to remember is that the denominator is an important part of the fraction, right? The denominator is literally the name of the fraction. Right? It kind of categorizes the fraction. It classifies it, right? It talks about specifically what type of fraction we're dealing with. Now, if we think about maybe going to the grocery store and we think about, we put stuff in our cart and we put maybe 5 apples and 7 oranges into our cart, when we look away and look back, that's still what we have. We don't magically make a new object in our cart. The reason we can't combine them together is they're not both the same. However, if I wanted to say, okay, altogether I brought, 11 pieces of fruit. Well, how was I able to generalize that? I was able to find some common ground between the different types of fruit. They're both fruit. Originally I had apples and oranges, but since they are both fruit, I found that common ground, and I was able to combine them together by reclassifying them as fruit. The same is true with fractions. We need to have the same category, the same denominator, in order to combine fractions. If we don't have that, we need to find something in common between them. Let's take a look at how we can do that. So first of all, let's take a look at this example here. I have 1/5 plus 2/5. This is the same as saying like 1 apple plus 2 more apples. We have fifths and fifths, which are both the same category. So altogether, we would have 3 of these fifths. So more algorithmically, what is happening here? When the denominators are the same, we add the numerators and keep the denominator what it was. So 3/5 would be our answer here. Okay, 1/5 plus 2/5 is 3/5. Now, things would be different if this were a 7, because now they don't have the same denominator. Now that they don't have the same denominator, I would have to find that common ground. And that common ground is a common denominator. In the next example, we're going to talk about exactly how to do that. So here I have 1/6 plus 4/9. 1/6 plus 4/9. So we need to find a common denominator for these two fractions, because right now they don't have one. 6 and 9 are not the same thing. So we need to find a denominator that is the same, that they both share. And how do we find that? Well, what we want to look at is multiples. Multiples are the numbers we get when we count by numbers. So the multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, etc. So let's list those out. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, etc., etc. Those are all of the multiples of 6. They're all the numbers that 6 go into. Similarly, if we look at the multiples of 9, we've got 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, etc., etc. Now, what we want to do, now that I've listed the multiples, I want to find what is in common between the two lists. And very clearly, I can see that 18 is in both lists, meaning 18 is a common multiple. In fact, it's the smallest common multiple, or the least common multiple, which we call the LCM. Now, this least common multiple is the number that we want to use for our new denominator. This is a number that both 6 and 9 go into. Now, why is that important? Well, what we need to do is we need to turn 1/6 and 4/9 into something over 18. So let's do that now. 1/6, I want to turn that into something over 18. How do I turn it into something over 18? We're going to use fraction multiplication. Specifically, we're going to multiply by a number over itself. Why? Because whenever I have a number over itself, it's equal to 1. So by multiplying by this really ugly form of 1, I'm not actually changing the value of the fraction. I'm just changing its appearance. Okay? It's like when I talked about apples and I made them fruit, I didn't magically change how many apples I had. Instead, I just rebranded them. So here we're rebranding using this fraction multiplication by an ugly form of 1, so that way we change its shape but not its value. So the question ultimately becomes, what number do I need to multiply 6 by to make it an 18? Well, 3, right? We know 6 times 3 makes 18. So we're going to multiply by 3 over 3. Okay, we're going to multiply by the fraction 3 over 3, because remember, 3 over 3 is just 1. We're not changing the value of the fraction, we're just changing its appearance. So by multiplying the top by 3, 1 times 3 is 3, and the bottom, 6 times 3 is 18. So I was able to rewrite 1 over 6 as 3 over 18. So what was originally 1 over 6, we're going to think about it as 3 over 18. Now, that's not our final answer because we still need to combine it with 4 over 9. And in order to do that, we need to change 4 over 9 into something over 18 as well. So, if I look at 4 over 9, put it over here, 4 over 9, once again, I want to turn that into something over 18. And what do I need to multiply by in order to make a 9 and 18? It's going to be 2. So I'm going to multiply by the fraction 2 over 2. Because 9 times 2 gives me that 18, and 4 times 2 on the top now gives me 8. So I was able to rebrand or rewrite 4 over 9 as 8 over 18. Now that I have that, I can replace both of my fractions with 3 over 18 and 8 over 18. And now that they have the same denominator, I can combine them together. So 3 plus 8 is 11, and I keep that denominator the same. 11 over 18 is my final answer. So this process of adding and subtracting fractions is this process every single time. It works the same exact way. You need to have a common denominator. If you have a common denominator like we had here, it's pretty simple. We just add the numerators and keep the denominator the same. If you don't have the same denominator, you need to find one. And in order to find one, we need to find a least common multiple, and then change each of the fractions so that way they have that common denominator. In this case, it was 18. And the way that we do that is by multiplying each fraction by a very specific form of 1. Multiply it by a number over itself, and we want that number to change the denominator to our least common denominator. It works the same way every single time. Check back in for more examples, guys. I'll see you next time.